Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm presenting a new segment of the channel called Turn Zero, where I discussed with you guys approaches and countermeasures that you guys can take to ensure better odds at winning in VGC. Today's topic will be revolving around good or potential counters to the Portland regional winning restricted duo of Leech Seed, Calyrex Ice, and Kyogre. I'm going to go through these Pokémon individually and then approach them as a duo. This iteration of Leech Seed Leftovers Calyrex Ice Rider has become quite popular, winning multiple in-person events such as Santiago, Utrecht, and Portland Regionals. It seems quite an unstoppable build, but let's dive into what makes this build strong. Calyrex Ice Rider is an Ice and Psychic type Pokémon that was introduced in Generation 8 in Pokémon Sword and Shield, and it was perfectly designed to be a Trick Room Pokémon. And what do I mean by this? Well, it is an extremely slow Pokémon with a base speed stat of 50 and considerable bulk, with 100 for its base HP stat, 150 for base defense, and 130 for base special defense. Not only does this bulk help Calyrex stay alive for long periods of time, but it also gives him more turns to click his signature move, Glacial Lance, a spread 130 base power ice move coming out of a 165 base attack stat. I know, quite ridiculous, but it does not end here. Calyrex Ice Rider has an ability of the name as one. It is basically two different abilities. The first one, Unnerve, prevents the opposing Pokémon from utilizing berries, and the second one, Chilling Neigh, gives him a +1 boost to attack if he knocks out a targeted Pokémon. As you guys can see, he is extremely deadly, as giving him a Chilling Neigh boost can mean the end of the match for you. Normally, this Pokémon runs the following moveset: Glacial Lance for stab, High Horsepower for coverage, Trick Room for speed and board control, and Protect. His usual item is a Clear Amulet, an item that does not allow the Pokémon using it to get stat drops, but he has also been using Never Melt Ice, an Ice type attack boosting item. But where does Leech Seed and Leftovers come in? Well, although this Pokémon is extremely strong, he also has his shortcomings. He is susceptible to Intimidate if his Clear Amulet is removed by knockoff, Steel and Water types give him a run for his money, and Wide Guard completely counters his best move, Glacial Lance, as it is a move that stops all damaging spread moves to affect the respective side of the field. Specific Pokémon that give him trouble are Incineroar, Zamazenta, Lunala, Kyogre, and his own mirror matchup against other Ice Riders. And how did players figured a way to beat them? Well, that is where the stall variant enters. With Leech Seed Leftovers, this Pokémon is consistently recuperating HP and consistently doing cheap damage to the previously mentioned Pokémon. With his set, it does not care if he is intimidated or even knocked off, as his Leech Seed gives him more than enough damage and sustain to stay on the field. This set also gets around Wide Guard spam from Zamazenta and Lunala, whilst also reversing not only these matchups, but also the Kyogre and Mirror matchups, allowing the Ice Rider to consistently damage this very tough Pokémon with minimal effort. The whole strategy revolves around not his offensive stats, but his defensive stats, making him a Celesteela 2.0 from generations past, with a crazy spread move and secondary ability resembling an attack boosting Beast Boost ability. But since we are currently in Regulation I, our teams can actually have two legendary Pokémon of our choosing. And Kyogre, a water-type Pokémon, was this Pokémon's restricted pair. Kyogre does not need an elongated explanation, as we all know what he is capable of doing, with his amazing stats and ability. He is a multiple in-person and online winning legendary Pokémon with absurd bulk and an extremely respectable 150 base special attack stat. This Pokémon can summon rain when he enters the field due to his ability Drizzle, powering up his stab moves even further. This Pokémon is especially threatening due to his Water Spout attack, a spread, special water-type move that does colossal damage due to the damage multipliers in question. But why are they good? Well, Kyogre's Drizzle can protect Ice Rider from fire-type moves, as well as punishing Pokémon that Ice Rider does not enjoy fighting, such as Koraidon, the cover legendary for this Gen 9 game in Scarlet version, whilst also hitting for super effective damage fire types that he dislikes, like Incineroar. Ice Rider protects Kyogre from grass-type Pokémon that can threaten him, as well as making him able to face Pokémon of typings that he does not like Dragon and the aforementioned grass types. What also helps this duo is the fact that both have crazy strong spread moves, and that both attack utilizing different offensive stats, attack and special attack, making it awkward for the opposing trainer to position his Pokémon, or to even set up a defensive countermeasure. With all this said and done, how exactly do we counter them? Well, it is quite simple, and I'll mention the most common counters to them firstly, and then effective niche Pokémon into this pairing. First of all, this pairing was only possible due to Miraidon having a reduced play in these latest events, which allowed Kyogre to come out from the woodworks and protect Ice Rider in the ways that I mentioned earlier. And so, this makes him a Pokémon that can threaten not only a KO on Kyogre, but also on Calyrex Ice Rider. Like I said previously, opposing bulky wildcard users are quite threatening to this pairing. Lunala can be quite pesky, especially with the power-up item. Lunala's Shadow Shield reduces inflicted damage on it when it has max HP, reducing said damage by 50%. This, paired with her typing of Ghost, making her unable to be faked out, and access to Meteor Beam, gives this Pokémon quite the offensive presence in this matchup, but it can also help with the team by clicking Wide Guard, as mentioning, enabling offensive positioning from the opponent in an almost unpunishable way. Well, Terra Water Zamazenta can also pose as a huge problem. This Terra allows this Pokémon to resist both attacks coming off this Pokémon, be it via Glacial Lances or Water Spouts, whilst also taking reduced damage from other water-type moves that a Kyogre might have. As a White Guard user, it can also enable offensive pivoting or plays by clicking Wide Guard. Still in this Wide Guard segment, I want to propose another counter to this duo, that being Araquanid. This Pokémon can easily tank attacks from both these Pokémon, due to its water typing and considerable defenses. It is also a White Guard user, and it even has a positive type matchup against Calyrex, where his bug typing and attacks can heavily damage the restricted Pokémon. In minimal damage, I rambled about ways to defensively counter this Pokémon duo, but we still need to do some damage to them, or else the Ice Rider can spam Leech Seed and Protect, making him basically unkillable, especially when behind an Intimidate or screens. Now, I propose not specific Pokémon, but a specific set of Pokémon that can be of great use in winning this matchup. As I said, we cannot be fully passive into this matchup, because that is exactly what this type of team wants. Like Alexander Hill said in Portland, setup Pokémon and teams might be the solution to this predicament, as we can capitalize on death turns, and basically ignore screens and consequentially dishing out more damage than these teams can recover.
For myself, kind of thinking about it on the car ride down here, is that there's almost like a bit of a rock, paper, scissors triangle where overwhelming offense doesn't do the best into hard defense. You know, if they are trying to if their defense is OHKOing you, taking you out in one hit, and then they can't do that because of reflect and light screen, then they get KO'd in return. That's just not a winning strategy.
Right.
And so now the thing that I think ends up putting yourself one step ahead of this overwhelming defense strategy we're seeing very popular right now is probably setup. I don't actually have like setup on my team, but like, you know, nasty plot, swords dance, those types of moves. You know, if your opponent is playing a bit passively, it gives you time to set those things up. But then those types of teams, those setup teams, they don't have time to set up when they face overwhelming offense. So it's kind of a bit of a circle.
I propose another approach, which gives us the edge in this matchup, whilst not completely compromising our matchups against hyper-offense teams, and that it is the simple stacking of damage multipliers. Offensive moves utilized on this game have their damage calculated through complex formulas. This formula has in consideration multiple variables, but I want to highlight the ones that are going to traduce themselves into more offensive pressure on our end. Those being same type attack bonus moves and type effectiveness, abilities, weather control, and item choice. Tab moves or same type attack bonus moves are moves that get a further 1.5 times boost to their damage if the Pokémon that utilizes said move is of the same typing. It also applies on Terra types, giving the Pokémon 1.5 times the boost on an attack of the same typing as their Terra, or a 2 times boost on attacks that are of the same typing of the Pokémon and the Terra. Type effectiveness is also a thing to have in consideration, as non-effective moves deal half the damage to the target and super effective moves the double. Abilities also play a role on this. Miraidon and Koraidon are great examples of this. Aldrich Engine not only sets up the electric terrain when Miraidon enters the field, giving his electric type moves a 30% boost in damage, as it also boosts Miraidon's special attack by 1 stage, a further 33% increase. Koraidon, with his Orichalcum Pulse, sets up the Sun, boosting his fire-type moves and giving him a +1 boost to his attack stats. Other examples of abilities that boost the damage output are Adaptability, Beats and Sword of Ruin, and less reliable ones such as Competitive or Defiant. These are the examples that I set, but there are more abilities that allow for more damage. Weather control is also a variable that powers up moves. Rain powers up water type moves by 50%, and Sun boosts fire type moves by the same amount. Finally, item choice. Items that boost the offensive presence of Pokémon, such as Life Orb, Choice Spect, Choice Band, etc., are highly valuable, and they can offer the Pokémon that uses them access to immense burst damage. Life Orb increases the damage made by 1.3 times, and the choice items give multiplicative buffs to the holder's offensive stats. Choice Specs and Choice Band are the ones that we want to talk about here, where they can multiply the special attack or attack of the respective holder by 1.5 times. Stacking up multiple damage multipliers gives you the best chance to win against these bulky teams, especially if your offensive Pokémon are behind ones that allow them for continuous pressure, such as those mentioned earlier. Niche moves that I recommend having in your team are Screens, Reflect and Light Screen for damage reduction against this type of team, meaning that Grimmsnarl is a great choice, especially because he also learns Foul Play, a stab dark type move that does more damage the higher the attack stat of the targeted Pokémon. Taunt is your best friend to stop Calyrex's advances with Leech Seed, Protect and Trick Room. And I also want to make a quick mention to the moves that halve the targeted Pokémon's remaining HP, such as Super Fang or Ruination. To sum up, I highly recommend using wildcard Pokémon like Lunala, Zamazenta and Raquanid, as they can prove to be quite challenging for the opposing trainer to position their Pokémon. But be careful, as to not fall in the Calyrex's trap that I mentioned earlier, of them just being able to set up Leech Seed. Use this Pokémon to protect your offensive pieces. These offensive pieces should have setup moves, such as Nasty Plot, Bulk Up, or Swords Dance, or they should be able to stack, if not all, most of the damage multipliers that I mentioned earlier. As such, use Pokémon like Terra Ghost, Nasty Plot, Calyrex Shadow Rider, Terra Fire, Life Orb Coridon, and Terra Fairy or Terra Electric Choice Specs Miraidon. Utilize Screens to decrease their damage potential, and Taunt to stop Calyrex's strategy. Super Fang and Ruination can hamper the adversary's plans, as they cut in half the targeted Pokémon's HP. This is especially important against Kyogre, because Water Spout damage is correlated to Kyogre's remaining HP. The higher the HP, the higher the damage. I also want to do some Ogerpon propaganda, Wellspring Ogerpon especially. This form has Water Absorb, making it immune to Kyogre's attacks, and this Pokémon, due to her Grass and Water typing, takes neutral damage from Glacial Lance, whilst being immune to Leech Seed. It also pressures Kyogre with their Grass type moves, and has a chance of pressuring Water Terra Calyrex, a common Terra these days. So make sure to bring a strong Fire type to force Calyrex to Terra and then smack him with a Wood Hammer. It is all for today. I hope this guide helps you guys deal with this threatening duo. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thank you all for the support that you have been giving me. Bye!